Welcome to Indomitable, a podcast designed for those of you who hunger to develop an unbreakable relationship with your spirit, which is the Spirit of God within us. I'm Emmanuel, and I'll be delivering truth and strategy which will allow you to connect the dots between God, your mind, body, and the powerful universe that you created. It's time to pick up our swords and fight. Welcome back to the Indomitable podcast. Today I'm going to be talking about the one quality trait that most leaders with good intentions are missing. And that was me for the first 4 out of 12 years in practicing with people who were going through every stressful situation that you can think of. I was lacking the assertiveness, but I was a master of empathy and compassion. And if that is you today, I welcome you. Lean in, please take notes. This is by far one of the most powerful teachings that I've had learned for myself. It's changed the dynamic of my relationships completely, quality of life. It's taken my influence from a 40 to a 100, and it's going to change your life. So in those first 4 years of working with clients, I remember that, everybody liked me, but nobody was experiencing a significant change within themselves. And I didn't know why. And ignorantly, I didn't know that assertiveness was the key element that made a great leader. And obviously, we're only doing what we know how to do. And I was a master of empathy and compassion because that's what I learned early on in life. My family were great with empathy and compassion. Compassion being, hey, I understand, I don't blame you. Empathy being, okay, like they're victimizing you, they're giving too much energy to your emotions and, validating them and then excusing your circumstances for why you're feeling the way you're feeling. And don't get me wrong, compassion and empathy are, I think, very strong character traits that leaders need to have. It's like flour and sugar in a carrot cake. Like you need that. But there's other ingredients that you're going to need if you want a good recipe in life, right? Empathy and compassion are great, but they're going to cap you out at a 40% because empathy and compassion, they only lead people to feel understood and that they're not to blame. But at the same time, it makes them to be victims. So they might feel good for a little bit, but there's no internal change that's occurring. So there's not going to be a change in their behaviors. So assertiveness is the thing that the best of the best leaders in the world have. That's what I'm going to be talking about today and how to develop that. And by the end of today's episode, your perspective of love and growth and relationships is going to change forever. So please lean in, take notes. Do not be passive about this because remember that when you take in new information, yet you don't make a solid intent to learn it and apply it, then you start to believe lesser about yourself. Because if I gave you $1 million today, yet you did nothing with it, then you're going to think really bad about yourself. So this is a $1 million lesson. Like I said, I've learned this for myself. It's changed every relationship that I'm in, my clients, the results, what I charge, just everything. So you can't go wrong with this. So let's talk about assertiveness, okay? And by the way, this lesson and every lesson that I give and everybody that I work with, period, this is only for leaders who are selfless. And a selfless leader is one who doesn't just want the leadership position, but they want to fulfill the requirements. The requirements are growth. They understand Luke 12:48, which says, to him who much is given, much is required. Most people, they want the position as a husband, as a leader, as a business owner, yet they don't want the requirements. The requirements are growth. So this is why marriages are going to crap. This is why cultures are bleeding. Organizations are losing millions per year. Simply put, there's leadership who is not serious about growth. And yes, a lot of it has to do with systems, marketing. But when a company has the systems, has the marketing, this tells me that it's leadership. So once again, lean in. This is only for you who wants to evolve, that you truly care about those that you serve. You want to be a legacy. You're the one that's breaking generational patterns in your family. And I applaud you for that, by the way. What is assertiveness? So assertiveness is your ability to successfully transfer logic into the minds of those that you lead, without being passive or assertive. And I'll add, unapologetically. You see, most people, what they're doing is that they're being passive. And at the end of the day, whether you're being passive or aggressive, you're transferring beliefs.
if you don't say anything when you see that somebody within your organization needs to improve, and if you fail to transform their mindset, their belief system, you're saying that you truly don't care. You're saying that you're not courageous. You're saying that you're not a great leader. You're also sending a message that says you're not safe in this environment with me, because at the end of the day, we feel safe under the wings of people who know how to get us out of difficult places right here within our minds, and of course, our circumstances. And that's our job as leaders. Our job as leaders is not to tell people what to do. No, it's to inspire them to become better within their belief system, because we understand that our beliefs are the things that drive our behaviors, and then to give them the strategy to do things better. All right, everybody else, you're not a leader, you're just a manager. So stop calling yourself a leader. Leaders understand transformation. So, that's what assertiveness is. It's basically your ability to transfer logic. That's it. Most people, in their attempts to develop their ability to influence and their communication skills, fundamentally, they don't understand what it is they're trying to do. So this is why it's the first step. You got to understand what it is. If you are leading somebody, your job is to inspire them to believe better about themselves. Now, this is not babysitting. This is not babying. This is not walking people by the hand. It's not that, okay? It's simply when you chose to be in a relationship with somebody, when you chose to have a child, when you chose to hire somebody and lead them, you're not just saying that you believe that, you're not just saying, hey, I believe that everything that you said about what your capabilities are true. You're also saying that wherever you fail to execute, I'm going to come in as your leader to lead you to become greater. In other words, to believe greater, because I understand the human nature. I understand the subconscious mind. I understand life as a whole. You see, and yeah, sure, you could succeed if you just pull out the firing card for everything. I saw this one girl, I forget what her name is, and she's built a $100 million business, and she's a leader, obviously, in a leadership position. I'm sorry, obviously, but she said something interesting. She said, I just recently fired my vice president. He just wasn't doing what he said he was going to do. And I'm like, imagine if you did that with your kids. Like, hey, I just kicked my kids out of the house because they didn't pick up the clothes. They didn't wash the dishes. They didn't do this or that. Right? It's like, well, that's your job as a leader. Your job as a leader is to inspire them with the growth that they need. That's why they chose you as a leader. They're trusting that you know how to change their mind, to get them unstuck when they're stuck, because everybody's been stuck. Imagine if somebody just fired you in your attempts to evolve. Like, think about most people that succeed. Most people that succeed, they've been stuck, and somebody inspired them to believe greater about themselves. But somehow, some way, they get to the top and they forget that was them at one point. But anyhow, that's another story for another day. So your assertiveness is your ability to transfer belief, period. Okay, so now the question is, how do I develop the ability to be assertive? Okay, so number one, you got to know what assertiveness is. We're done with that. Number two, you got to believe that you have a mind that has the ability to evolve. You'd be amazed at how many people, and maybe this is you'd be amazed at how many people I've worked with that have read about 300 leadership books, yet their leadership sucks. Why? Because when they're reading, they're unaware that they actually have a belief that's subconscious that says that I don't have the ability to evolve. And it makes no sense to begin the process of evolution if you don't first integrate that belief into your mind. Because every time that you try to take a piece of information and apply it, that belief that says, hey, in the past when you tried, you failed, it's gonna take over, and it's not gonna allow you to process that information, through your nervous system and to the application. So this is why step number two is you got to believe that you have a mind that has the ability to evolve. Okay, now if you've already been evolving for a while and you've been working on yourself for a while, then great, you already got the belief, no problem. Step number three is that you have to understand what are the benefits. You see, whenever I'm going to develop a new habit, new system, whatever it is that I'm going to develop that I don't have developed yet, I need to understand what are the benefits. Like, what am I going to get out of this? And the more reason you give your mind as to why it should do this, right? Because the why is not just purpose, right? It's also, what am I going to get out of this? Your mind tends to want to do that with greater emphasis. If I told you, hey, develop the habit of this, and I'll give you $1 million in 2 weeks, which, by the way, your mind can develop a habit in 2 weeks, you're not going to struggle. There's not going to be any need for strategy, right? You're going to have such a great desire to take action. You're going to take action. The mind will believe that's who you are now. It becomes a part of your identity. And boom, execution, moving forward with that habit is easy. Here with assertiveness, you're not getting $1 million. So you have to give yourself the evidence of, what am I going to get out of this, right? Like what are going to be the tangibles? And one of the tangibles to assertiveness is less drama. Like, think about it. If you have the ability to inspire other people with their need for growth, because what you want to know is that growth is a human need. You want to understand this. And if you knew this and you forgot this, it's a reminder, right? Growth is a human need. Okay. It's like water. It's a need. The only difference between growth and water is that if you don't drink water, you die in a few days. If you're not fulfilling the need for growth, then you're going to die gradually, right? Because anything that isn't growing is dying, because there's the law of entropy. The law of entropy basically states that anything that is not growing will tend to move towards disorder. So when you are leading somebody and you're leading with this awareness that growth is a human need, and that in order to fulfill them with that need for growth, you need to be assertive, because assertiveness is your ability to transfer beliefs. That's what growth means. It's to believe better about yourself. Every time you shift your beliefs, that is growth. And that must be a lifelong process, or else there's going to be disorder and there's going to be chaos. So when you understand that assertiveness is going to lead you to lead other people to fulfill their need for growth, then this is magic, because anybody who inspires somebody else with the need for growth, their loyalty is going to lie with you. Like, think about it. If you were starving today and I found you and I fed you, right? I helped you to meet that need. How do you feel about me? What do you think about me? Right? You're going to want to be with me. You're going to want to hang out with me. You're going to be submissive to my will. And what is our will as leaders, by the way? Our will is to inspire those that trust us with growth, period. Okay? So, when you are inspiring somebody with their need for growth through assertiveness, their loyalty to you is going to increase. And the loyalty is not for the sake of controlling, because we don't have the right to determine how long somebody's going to be in a relationship with us. Of course, I'm not talking about marriage. I'm talking about, your children, and I'm talking about those that you lead within your organization. You don't know how long your VP is going to be with you. You don't know how long your regionals are going to be with you. But for the time that they are with you, you want to make sure that you inspire them with their need for growth. And you want to do it on a consistent basis through assertiveness. The longer you do that, I guarantee you that they're going to stay with you longer. When you see that turnover rates are high, that's simply because a leader is not inspiring the people that he leads with their need for growth. If he was inspiring them with the need for growth, they stay with you. Like, think about the families that stay together. That's because there's a consistent inspiration within their mind. That's it. When you see kids wanting to leave their mother and father, that's because mother and father don't inspire them with their natural need for growth. It's just the way it works. The inspiration to develop the ability to be assertive comes because you understand that the quality of your relationships is going to increase tremendously, right? Turnover rates are going to decrease. You're not going to be from one relationship to another relationship to another relationship to another relationship. Think about how many people can sustain a relationship in their personal life, and think about the reason why they can't. Well, because they lack assertiveness, right? They're just not working on themselves, right? If your wife is stuck, right? It makes no sense to me. When I used to get guys that reach out to me and they say, Manuel, my marriage is going to crap. And I'm like, okay. So, I'd walk them through the process and tell them how it works and blah, 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 and towards the end they say, well, let me see if my wife wants to do this. Let me see if my wife is willing to work on herself. And I'm like, that's the reason why your wife doesn't respect you, because you don't inspire her with the need for growth. If you're a female listening to this, let me know. What are your thoughts on that? Like in the comments below. Like, think about it. Like, if your man is constantly improving himself, okay, working on himself day in and day out, yes or no, you feel safe in his presence. But if he's constantly asking you for permission to improve himself, whether you want to like do this and do, I mean, you're not going to feel safe. Now, this doesn't mean that women don't have a say-so or any of that. It's a team effort, right? Both individuals have their purpose within a marriage, right? But, you know, that guy, he's never going to be respected, right? Because he's asking for permission to work on himself. It's just stupid. When you are assertive, number one, with yourself and with other people, right? When you get your wife unstuck, like if you guys, I wish I had I'm going to start doing these with my wife, you know, because I really want to talk about this with her, you know, and so you can see her insight, her feedback on this. If you were to ask my wife, like, what are your thoughts about Emmanuel every single time that you're stuck and he gets you out of that stuck place? Like, what are your thoughts about Emmanuel when you guys are stuck as a marriage and he goes hard to work on himself and doesn't blame you and doesn't wait for you to start working on yourself? She's like, dude, like I feel like I'm using her words, by the way. Okay. If you've been to one of my Indomitable workshops and she's there in all of them, like, you'll know, you know, because I ask her right there and she'll say this, she'll be like, you know, you're my superhero. You know what I mean? Because think about it, like, once again, you know, I'm going to create an episode just out of the need for growth. It's super important. Go chat GPT it, right? Tony Robbins talks about the 6 human needs and how growth is one of them, being the need of the spirit. Like, if you're not fulfilling your need for growth, you're dying, period. And if you are a leader and you're inspiring people with their need for growth through assertiveness, those people are indebted to you, right? And you're going to be able to lead them with so much more ease when it's time to course correct, when late to work, and it's time for you to dig in and see what it is that's stopping them, what's going on in their personal life. Like, their unconscious mind is going to be very submissive to your will. And it just gets easy. Like, I don't struggle with my kids. I don't struggle with my wife. It never happens that we stay stuck. It just doesn't happen, right? Because I'm constantly asserting new beliefs into the people that I lead, and their loyalty lies with me. You know, we're talking here about the benefits of being assertive. And one of those is that you're going to be constantly fulfilling the people that you lead. You're going to be fulfilling their need for growth, which means that they're constantly going to believe greater about themselves, their potential, their future, their life. And what we do is a byproduct of who we are, right? So if you want your organization to flow with almost perfection, all you need to do is teach your leaders how to be assertive. But for your leaders to be assertive, they need to be into personal development. They got to be into growth. You know, I was hired by this one company about 2 years ago, and the vice president was not into personal development. The wife of the owner was not into personal development. They said they are, and they talk about motivation, but I didn't see any reflection. All I saw was this person's to blame for this, that person's to blame for this. Like, it was just like blame, right? And talking about how bad of a job everybody was doing and how they can't get their stuff together. And it's like, well, are you growing for yourself? You can't. You see, you can't transfer what you're not, period. You know, so going back to the benefits, right? Your turnover rates are going to decrease tremendously. Performance in your people is going to go through the roof. The inspiration is going to be through the roof. Like, innovation is going to be through the roof. Your marriage is going to go through the roof. Your children are going to want to be with you forever. They're not going to want to leave the house, right? So it's just the respect. Like, think about the respect. People respect people who inspire them to grow. If you're stuck in life and I fail to inspire you beyond your situation, you're not going to respect me. Sure, you'll be like, he tried, he's a nice guy. But you didn't inspire. There was no transformation. You know, your compensation is going to increase. I like how Myron Golden, he talks about the 4 tiers of earners. The 3rd tier, which is right below generational wealth, $250,000 a year to several $1 million, right? And he says that the one thing that separates that tier from the 2nd tier and the 1st tier is communication. Communication is influence. That's assertiveness. The moment that I started learning how to assert myself my beliefs in a moral and righteous way because I was living up to that standard, like, man, my fees went from $100 an hour to $2,000 an hour. Like everything just changed tremendously. My influence, the time in which my clients got results went from, Lord God, what would have taken me, without exaggeration, 4 months to one session, without exaggeration. Because if people are getting better results, that's because their behaviors are changing. And if their behaviors are changing, that's because their beliefs are changing. Remember that people's behaviors are driven by their beliefs that are subconscious, which once again, and I'm being very repetitive with a lot of things I'm saying here, but it takes time to understand this. And it's very worth it. Everything is going to change in your life. The benefits are just tremendous. There's less stress in your life. You're going to live a longer life. I mean, it's just beautiful. You don't need to see your kids in and out of jail, struggling. You don't have to be firing people. It's just awesome. I mean, I can go on and on about the benefits. Now, benefits, by now you should be inspired about like, all right, Emmanuel, like I hear you. I see the benefits. Like, I'm ready to go. Let's do this. Now, what do? Okay. Next is you got to address the limiting beliefs. If you are lacking assertiveness and you have empathy and compassion, more than likely you just never learned it, period. Or when you were younger, you tried speaking up, you tried asking questions, which is natural and part of a child's evolution. Yet somebody told you to shut up, don't ask questions. That's a stupid question. Like, why would you even? We're conditioned to associate speaking up to pain. So you might have a limiting belief that says speaking up equals pain. And I'll hear people say like, Manuel, I don't like confrontation. And I'm like, well, that's not confrontation. That's leadership right there. So I like to change that word confrontation for profrontation, right? We're moving this situation forward through assertiveness, right? So you got to address the limiting beliefs. Some limiting beliefs might be, what if they don't like me? What if they think that I don't understand their situation? What if they quit? All of those limiting beliefs, they're not valid because at the end of the day, they're quitting anyways. And even if they're not quitting, they're staying, they're not performing, which it's just better if they do quit and you hire somebody else. But you can only hire as good as you've become, which is why assertiveness is one of the greatest superpowers that the best of the best in the world have. So you got to address the limiting beliefs. And then from there, you need to associate, and this is the part that I learned to teach this in this unique way, and I really love it because once I learned this, it just like changed the entire game for me. And there came a time in my life where I said, okay, if God is love, what is the effect of love, right? And I started to think like, okay, like if I love my plant, what happens to that plant? It grows. If you truly love something, like what is the effect of that? Right? And every time that I ask somebody this question, I get the exact same answer. If God is love, and let's say God is cause, what is the effect of God? Do you become lesser? No. Do you become complacent? No. Do you evolve? Yes. Everybody always says yes. If God is a force of energy that causes things to grow, and God is love, then you need to associate assertiveness, being the thing that causes things to grow, as love. How many people carry this belief that love is unconditional? I've had so many parents in the past when I used to work with parents, and they say, you know what, my son, my daughter, they just don't want to work on themselves. So it's not their time, or, you just can't force them. And I'm like, see, it's your perspective of love that has your children in that place. Love is a force of energy that causes things to grow. You must believe, well, you don't have to believe, but your life is not going to change. Your leadership is not going to change. You must believe that love is a force of energy, which is not forceful, by the way, but it's a force of energy that causes things to grow. And ever since I adopted that belief, it's impossible for anybody who is in my environment that's trusting me with their life, it's impossible for them to stay stuck because my belief immediately picks up on that. If anybody in my environment is not growing consistently, progressively, then my mind will catch that and it'll say, they're stuck. Go love them. You see, so it's a game changer when you associate growth to love. And in this way, everybody around you is going to be consistently evolving. Now it's your turn to practice because like any other skill in life, it's about practicing, right? So you want to believe that if I speak up, people are going to respect me. If I speak up, I'm being a great leader. If I'm assertive, people are going to evolve and their lives are going to get that much better. If I am assertive, then the quality of my being increases. Like my compensation increases. Like you got to change all of the beliefs around assertiveness. One of the specific beliefs is this last one, which is love. So now it's time for you guys to go practice. And I guarantee you, and I would love to hear back from you guys once you've actually done this, because I know the feedback that I'm going to get. Because every time that I assert myself when somebody's stuck in life, the result is always great. So I want to hear the feedback from you guys. What was the effect after you inspired somebody to grow? And you're going to see that the effect will always be greater. And what happens is that once you do it once you are assertive one time, and typically life is going to introduce you with an opportunity that's going to scare you, right? It's going to scare you. But I guarantee you that if you lean in and you assert yourself, your mind is going to associate the new outcome with assertiveness. And from there, you're going to fall in love with it. You're going to want to be asserting yourself with everybody. And every day you're going to wake up and you're going to say, like, I look forward to asserting myself today, because that's what true love is, right? I look forward to inspiring people today. Remember that the inspiration comes through assertiveness. And assertiveness is where you're leading people to believe better about themselves. So that's today's episode. If you guys have any questions, I want to hear your feedback. Put it in the comments below. I would love to hear more on what you guys think. What do you agree with? What do you not? And if you guys are new to this channel, I would love for you guys to subscribe. Hit the notification bell if you found this to be valuable, and share this with somebody who you believe has great intentions like you as a leader and is struggling to influence. Because remember that contribution is another human need. And when you withhold information, you're going to struggle to implement that information. And remember that when you work for your creator, which is God, to work for God means to work on yourself and to inspire other people with what you are learning. God will compensate you with more. Thank you so much, and I'll see you on the next episode.